Hi, I'm Jacques Barrett, comedian, actress, and idiot. I have a podcast of my own. It's called Quite the Pickle. Each week, myself and fellow comedian Emma Zammit think up a heinous situation, and then we interview a professional who gives us tricks, tips, and pointers on how to survive the pickle. At the end of each episode, we perform stand-up that we've written about what we learnt in the interview. It's a lot of fun. That's Quite the Pickle, available on iTunes and Spotify.
We hope you enjoy.
Yeah.
Hey, it's another episode of the Antisocial Podcast, and before we kick into this episode, of course, patreon.com/Andy Dowling is the best way to support this podcast, and support starts from only $1 a month. Dirt cheap, set and forget, you won't even notice it, and there are additional tiers if you want access to the exclusive Patreon podcast episode, and a bunch of other free shit, heaps of stuff, over at patreon.com/Andy Dowling. Hey, welcome back to the Antisocial Podcast. This is episode 283. And my guest on this episode is Jesse Dracman. Jesse is the frontman for Darkcell, who have been around for the past 10 years. And longer than that, Jesse has been a part of the Gold Coast and Brisbane music scenes for just a hell of a long time. In fact, I wasn't 100% sure, but I was fairly adamant that I bumped into Jesse many, many years ago. And, I posed that question to him, and I'll let him in this chat confirm or deny that. But an incredibly busy guy. Obviously, Darkcell over the past decade has taken up a lot of his time. But in more recent times, he's dug into some of his older passions from his childhood and has a comic book out now called Freakenstein. And since all of the shit that we've all been dealing with over the past 12 months globally, Jesse's used a lot of this time where he's been forced to have to sort of restrict himself from doing the usual things we've all been used to, especially in music. He's really sort of dug deep and churned out an amazing amount of stuff. He's done 4 short stories. He's got this comic book that's out, and he started doing soundtrack music, and he's got so much stuff on the go, in the works. Incredibly inspiring stuff. So definitely go to darkcell.com, and that's darkc3ll.com, and go to freakproductions.com, and that's freak spelled Freek, so freakproductions.com. Of course, I'll have everything in the show notes over at andysocial.net and andydowling.net, so make sure you check out Darkcell, check out Freakenstein, and everything else that we discussed will be in the show notes. So enough crapping on from me. Please enjoy this great chat with Jesse Dracman. I thought an interesting place to start, because I was trying to get my bearings, because I'm pretty sure we bumped into each other at one point many, many years ago, and I might get this completely wrong, but did you used to book shows at the Hard Rock Cafe on the Gold Coast?
Guilty as charged.
Hey, there we go. Got the right guy.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I did many a good year booking at that place, and it was an awesome time, man. Being able to, more than anything, give bands an opportunity to be heard at a place where they could be heard on a grand stage in a place that gave them the chance that no one else would.
Oh, it was such a wild place to go, because obviously Hard Rock's an iconic brand. And just to be associated with that, and I remember the setup being really cool, and obviously you running the show helped things sort of run smoothly. But I think that's probably my early memories of yourself from there, whereas I think a lot of people would tend to know you from obviously Darkcell, that's been around for like the past 10 plus years.
10 years, man. 10 years.
Yeah, geez. So we'll jump all over the place, but just prior to Darkcell and obviously doing the gig booking and things like that, what sort of bands and sort of involvement did you have around sort of the local circuit at the time?
Man, honestly, I bounced around a few different bands, if you will, prior to Darkcell, over I guess a 5, maybe 10 year period roughly. I don't know. Time is irrelevant to me sometimes, but honestly, I was, I started out just, as any musician does, kicking around, jamming, and playing all the shitty gigs and all the rest of it. And, long story short, I trial and error through a few different horror themed bands before I teamed up with Matt to form Devolution, which we enjoyed a good 5-7 year run, I think it was, with that, recording and playing shows and tours. And we reached a point where, it was a fun band. It was good. We had some great shows, and people knew who we were, and, everything was, fun. But musically, we just weren't, we knew there was something more to be created, and we just didn't feel that we could achieve that sound with Devolution. So we, ended up creating what would be Darkcell. Started writing just a bunch of songs. We had no desire to create a band or anything. And man, we just wrote a couple of songs for a bit of fun. And I got a call from a promoter asking if I was in a band and wanted to open for Combi Christ, who were touring from the US. And I was like, I just played dumb and went, yep, absolutely, man. Got a band ready to go. I didn't have a band. It was just Matt and me recording. So, we called bluff and, took on a show in Brisbane supporting Combi Christ, and put a band together within a miraculous 2 months, I think it was, less than that. And we didn't even have a band name till the night of the show.
Oh, really? Wow.
So, yeah, true story, dude. So, here we are. We've got 6 songs. We pieced together this band. And it was hilarious fun, man. We had a great time. Rit, that plays bass in Darkcell, played second guitar on that first show. And yeah, man, we just had so much fun. It was just great. And after that, it was when Matt and me just sort of looked at each other and went, maybe we should do this for real and take it a bit serious. And went, yeah, okay, cool. And we just got into it because, the instigator for that was, Andy, who I've been friends with since, from Combi Christ, was just like, dude, these songs kick ass. And a couple of people in the audience were digging it. And, the rest is history.
Oh, mate, I love that. That's so cool. I mean, especially sort of accept now and worry about it later. Like, just you got to seize the opportunity. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
It's like a great piece of advice that I got from a seminar at Supernova, the nerd convention that we all love. And I saw Todd McFarlane, the creator of Spawn, one of my favorite comic artists. And he gave this great piece of advice, and he said, in life you can approach we all approach a cliff face, and you can either look down and stop, or you can just not even look down and just run and leap. And we chose the run and leap option.
Well, it's obviously paid off, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Leading up to that show, did your promoter mate start to just get a whiff of like going, oh, maybe these guys are sort of scrambling at the last minute to get a band together? Because I mean, you mentioned that the name of the band didn't come until the night of the show. I mean, did they sort of suss something out a little bit closer to go, you sure you guys are going to be good for this?
It was quite funny because he thought I was operating, I don't know, he thought Devolution was like a 2-piece band or something. He just knew that Matt and me were the prime creators. He thought we were just playing as a duo. I didn't realize that that was his intention. And I've come to him and said, yeah, we're a 5-piece band. He goes, you are not going to fit on the stage. And I was like, I don't care. Well, I said, trust me, we'll make it work. We did. The bass player and me stood on a separate piece of staging that rocked back and forth like a surfboard. So we had the best time. I've got video footage of it. We were just standing on it, rocking it back and forth like a seesaw, man, just having the time of our lives, dude. And, he freaked out. He was nervous. And I said, trust me, just take a punt. I've never let you down, and I'm not going to let you down or start letting you down now. And, man, that was a great night. We made lifelong friends with the guys from, Combi Christ. And, man, like I said, man, the rest is history. But it was pretty funny how we got there.
Oh, it's amazing. And a really interesting thing as well, which I'm always harping on about this with other bands, because I think bands still don't get this, or they become really lazy with the internet because it's so easy just to connect with people. But, obviously you got that call because you already had a reputation, you were reliable, and this person had that trust. And so he thought of you when an opportunity popped up, but that wouldn't have happened unless you had put the groundwork in over a longer period of time prior. for him to
Pretty
even
much, yeah.
have you front of mind. And so, as you said, like getting closer to it, it's like, I haven't let you down in the past and I'm not going to let you down now. And so it's that kind of thing where, you know, you really, I mean, it's all about your reputation, and it's about going out of your way to make sure that, you know, your peers and the people that you work with are taken care of, and you never let people down. And when you
100%.
start doing that, then opportunities start to roll in over time. So I think it's just a really important thing that a lot of bands just fucking forget all the time.
It's honestly the truth, man. I mean, there's so much that shocks me about bands today with how they approach every facet of what they do. They just all think, you know, it's all internet and the rest is history. It's like, nah, man, there's a lot more groundwork that's got to be put in than, you know, everything else. It's, and unfortunately we've lost a lot of that in recent years with, you know, the evolution of social media and just everything else that's changed in our climate. And it's sad. It's sad because, you know, I feel grateful that we come from a time where we were those guys running around at gigs. I remember when we put out the first Darkcell CD, we were running around as a band. We bought tickets to Soundwave and we were running around handing out CDs to every person that looked like they might listen to our band. Yeah, like anyone in the metal pit, anyone that, you know, was in makeup, whatever. We were just like, dude, check this band out, you know. And that's, you know, we kind of just spend our day just doing that, man. And, you know, that's what you've got to do. You just got to put in the groundwork.
And especially now where, you know, I think we've almost passed that whole Facebook invite event sort of thing where that used to be the one to go to. But I think there's still an element of that now where we post something and then we expect that that's all we need to do. And I'm big on that. I shouldn't call it an old school approach because it should just still be happening. But, you know, doing the flyer drops, getting out to different shows, networking with your peers, talking to people who might have a similar T-shirt to the band that you guys sound like, and just striking up conversations, because that stuff's the stuff that makes or breaks a band. I mean, you got to build that community.
It's called brand awareness, man. It's like how you want to sell your brand. I mean, this is where a lot of bands, they come out with this, you know, what they think is a polished product. And yeah, that's fine. You know, I'm sure they've gone and recorded a great EP or album, whatever, but they've got nothing behind it to push it. You know, they haven't gone out there and gone to support other bands' gigs. They haven't, you know, been sociable and made themselves present, you know, their presence felt by other people, you know. And I think that's such a vital part of getting out there. I mean, any great band will tell you that's what you've got to do.
Was that something intentional that you guys had when you finally got the band name worked out, you played that first show? Did you guys have a strategy about how you wanted to do it, or was this just more of a natural thing that you guys just lent into anyway and it just worked out going sort of in that direction?
It was an evolution. It was a real process of just trial and error. You know, like we didn't sort of set out to, you know, put on hordes of theatrical makeup and rely on theatrics or anything, you know, because Matt and me had come from a background of playing in horror bands and stuff. So we were well accustomed to all that sort of stuff. That was in our blood already. But we just wanted to focus on the music first and foremost. After that, we just kind of wanted to play shows and have fun, but with the mindset of creating a sound that could sound as big on stage as it could on CD or whatever format people listen on, you know. So, you know, like some bands, they struggle in that department. They record this U-Butte sounding EP or album, but then they go on stage and it sounds like dog's balls compared to the audio. So in our market, in our product, it was vital to us to whatever we recorded had to sound as bombastic on stage, you know, right down to the vocals. You know, I would not record a note of what I could sing on CD if I couldn't replicate it live. Yeah. You know, so it was just that kind of mentality that we strived for, was I guess a perfection of sorts, but, you know, just pride in the product of just, you know, just giving people a really authentic product that could just completely rock their world.
And I guess not just the sonic element of the band, but also just the aesthetics, the visual. I mean, you guys, there's no there's no hiding who you guys are. Like, as soon as you see a picture, you know exactly what band it is. And no doubt, like, you know, going and playing live over the years, that you guys have put a lot of time and effort into making it a visual thing and putting on an actual performance and entertaining, rather than just saying, well, here we are, we're creatives, we're writing music, so we're just going to play and you can just appreciate the music and that's it. It's like a multi-dimensional approach that you have to take on.
Absolutely. I mean, for us, it was, you know, it didn't happen overnight. It took time. Like I said, it happened organically. We didn't push it. I mean, we started out as just a bunch of dudes just wearing a bit of guy liner and bandanas and just, you know, just being ourselves, really. And then over time, we sort of started, you know, after playing with bands like Combi Christ, and then, you know, being friends and playing with guys like Wednesday 13, you know, we started looking at that going, you know, Australia doesn't really have this kind of band. You know, we have a very unique opportunity to give Australia the kind of band that they can have on their home soil. That's like this. And, you know, we didn't try to, you know, copy any of those sort of bands. We just kind of went, well, this is something that we've been doing a long time ourselves in previous acts. Let's just refine it and give it our own spin. And if people say we look and sound like Rob Zombie or Dope or Wednesday 13 or Manson or any of those guys, great, because they're our heroes. They're the guys that we grew up with on our walls. I'm more happy to be compared to, you know, my heroes than be compared to 20 or 30 other bands that all sound and look the same.
Yeah, that's right. And because as you said, there was nothing else. There's no other Australian band that was doing anything sort of equivalent to what these big names were, you know, coming from North America in particular. You know, no doubt when you would go and see these artists and these bands tour Australia, you would see these rooms just getting packed out with punters and just go, well, there's obviously the fans are here, but there's nothing locally that they can sort of latch onto and call their own. Did you, I mean, you mentioned the thing before about Soundwave and sort of hustling with the CDs, which I love. Were there other things that you guys tried to do to try and find these people? Because sometimes what I saw over the years, because, you know, for us, the type of music we're playing is like Iron Maiden and Priest and all that sort of stuff. And so we're trying to find that particular fan, and a lot of them are weekend warriors, or they're people that just you only see a couple of times a year when the internationals come out. Did you guys have a similar sort of challenge to try and find these people? And what did you do to try and build that fan base of these people that would normally go to these larger international shows?
Yeah, look, I mean, you know, once again, you know, we're fortunate that we came from a time where we still had, you know, reputable nightclubs, music venues. You know, the scene was a little different back then, and I'm quite proud of the fact that we came from that time period, because it's a lot more challenging today for artists. You know, back then we would go to, you know, I would go to, you know, gothic industrial nightclubs. We would go to gigs. We would go to heavy metal shows, you know, wherever we knew that there were people that liked music. Because inevitably, doesn't matter, they don't have to look a certain way. We all breathe the same air. We all, you know, share the same kind of blood and all the rest. So we all have a love of music. That's our common trait. So inevitably, people will latch on to what you do if you are able to sell it in a way that you're passionate about it, it's believable, and it's not just hey, listen to my band, we rule. It's none of those cheesy one-liners. It's actually legit. You're talking with passion. You're talking as if, you know, I love talking to people in a way that they actually matter to me. So when I say to them, hey, by the way, check out my band, of course they're going to check out the band, because I've invested time giving a shit about their life and asking them, how the hell are you? And in return, when I ask them, hey, when you got 5 minutes, please check out my music, they will do it graciously.
It makes a big difference, doesn't it? I think a lot of people panic about trying to win over the masses ASAP, and when you do that, you lose that personal connection with people. And I think it might feel like you're not getting a lot of traction, but if you're just hitting people one at a time and spending time with them and getting to know them, I mean, in the end, like the way that we look at it with our band, it's like, you know, all the cliches, it's like they're an extension of the band, they're part of the community, they're our friends more so than fans. And so for us, like, it's the whole thing that, bands always say, like, we wouldn't exist if it wasn't for you guys, that kind of stuff. But it's
you
true.
hear all that stuff.
Yeah. But we have to keep
That's
reminding, we have to keep reminding them by investing our time into them to make sure that they feel, acknowledged that they exist. And so it's not a one-way street.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, we've been very fortunate over our career to have people come to us with genuine, heartfelt stories of how our music has made a difference in their lives. I've met people that have contemplated suicide, dealing with anxiety and depression, families with kids that have, autism, people, with life-threatening illness, all these hard luck stories, and they've all come to me and said, you know what, listening to your music brightened my day just that little bit. And, to me, that means the world, and it's only fair that I give them my time to say, well, hey, that's great, and I appreciate that, but tell me more about you.
It's humbling, though, isn't it, just to get that sort of feedback from people? It
is. It really is. And, for me, writing the music we write, it's, I don't think about, world domination or anything like that. It's like, we just want to write the music we love, and hopefully other people connect with it. And, if we get a few people that like it along the way, then fantastic. And we've been very fortunate to do so in the process.
Did you guys have any challenges with a little bit of segregation within the metal community and trying to put on shows? Because I would assume that there wouldn't be.
Of course.
Oh, there you go, straight away, like without a doubt, yeah. Because you guys wouldn't be playing a type of metal that is the most common out there, and so to find similar bands, there wouldn't be that many.
No, I mean, look, we've dealt with it all. We've had, that's why when we call ourselves, quite often online, we'll call ourselves the black sheep of Australian music, because we are the black, it might sound a little bit egotistical to say it, but I can proudly say we are the black sheep of Australian music, because, there's a few other bands that, they slap on a bit of makeup, whatever, or they put a bit of synth in their sound, whatever, and think they sound like us, that's fine. That's good. But we are Darkcell. There is only one Darkcell. We do what we do. Simple as that. We're not saying that we're the best of the scene or anything like that. We just do what we do, and we do it well. Getting shows, oh my God, that was always fun, promoters would take a punt on us because we were interesting. They heard our stuff and they were like, do you guys sound like this on stage? And I'd always say better. And, you've got to really be able to sell your product, man.
For sure.
It's so true. If you just go out and say, oh yeah, it doesn't sound believable. You've got to have conviction, and you've got to have absolute determination and on how you sell yourself. Otherwise, people won't take a punt on you. But man, we've dealt with, scenes where, we're just a small speck in a pond full of sheep. It's, I could go on all day about some of the things the adversity we've faced. Right down to there was an infamous scene moment years ago where a promoter booked us in Melbourne, and then he negged on the deal because he was a Christian guy, and he listened to our music and didn't agree with our content. He just said that we were devil worshippers, and I said, actually, we're not. We're far from it. And we just got into this war of words, and it leaked into the media, and it was quite interesting. So we got a little bit of love from the Church of Satan, and it was kind of funny. But I've never said we're satanic by any means. Even though we have songs that say devils and stuff like that, it doesn't mean we're satanic.
Oh, it's just people looking on the surface only and not putting a lot of effort to really understand what, what's in front of them. Yeah. And
that's it.
And obviously metal sort of cops a bit of that in general, but I think when you've also got a visual as well, and you guys are sort of, you're not modest with the way that you guys have put yourselves out there over the years. You've really worked hard to, as you said before, you got to have conviction behind your product, what you do.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
That attracts, good and bad attention along the way.
It does. In this country, we have tall poppy syndrome. So, I've seen many friends' bands experience that. They get to a certain point of success, or however you want to define success, and people just knock them down a peg just because they're doing something good. It's like people call them sellouts or whatever. They'll just, I don't know. We're funny in this country about how we treat our bands. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think in some respects I see glimmers of hope where I think people are getting a little bit more adventurous with putting themselves out there and talking about themselves in a more confident manner, because I think we're so connected with other parts of the world now. So we're sort of we feel, I think in some cases, a little bit more on a equal plane because of the connectivity. Yes. But yeah, it's still tough. It's so tough to talk with any confidence and to be picked up by your peers instead of just beaten down, and that's always been a really tough thing. Lots of opportunities missed from people that just haven't persevered.
Absolutely. I mean, for us, it's very hard being a band like Darkcell in this country, because we're what we do is a small population in this broad country, and when we toured the US and Europe, that's when we got to taste just a small glimmer of how big it is over there in those countries, and we just kept saying, "Shit, man, we're the right band, the wrong country."
It sounds like us in like Germany or something like that with all the heavy metal warriors. I'm like,
exactly.
we're in the wrong part of the world.
Exactly. Yeah, like any good metal band in Australia, once they get overseas, they go, "Oh my God, what are we doing in this country? We should be over here." But look. I'm proud of where we are, man. I have no gripes with Australia. I'm proud of us. I just wish we're a little bit more open in the media and stuff with all the musical genres, rather than what's trendy at the moment.
Yeah. And the only thing that you can do is get creative with what you can and promote yourself and do your collabs and all that sort of stuff.
Well,
and build an organic network.
100%, man. And that's the best thing you can do, really.
You mentioned before about promoters taking a punt on you guys just to see how it would go. Was there ever any sort of unusual pairings that you guys had with international supports, for example, like where you guys walked out on stage and it was just like the crowd sort of going, who the hell are these guys?
Yeah. We were pretty lucky because we didn't just sort of accept any old gig. We'd sort of been doing it long enough that we knew the kind of caliber of bands we wanted to play with. And we always looked at it, with a very simple and practical philosophy of how is this going to add value to our career? How is this going to benefit us, rather than we'll just play in front of 20 people that have never seen us before and hope for the best. No, we have to be, a bit more specific about this, and we sort of were a bit more cautious about who we played with. But for the most part, I mean, we were pretty fortunate. Like Combi Cross, bands like that were a little bit, a little bit left of center for us. We're not quite on the same. Well, at the time, we weren't on the same level. But their audience was pretty accepting of us too, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, look, I mean, nothing like the infamous Powderfinger supporting Pantera fiasco.
I love that one.
No, nothing will ever top that. Nothing will ever top that. I'm sure if you ask them today.
Oh, that's it. Oh, I would love to. I mean, I'm not a Powderfinger fan, but I think just to try and capture a bit more of that story from one of those guys. Oh man, I'd love to hear a bit more of that.
I picked up their biography just to read that excerpt. I wanted to find that chapter about it, because I to this day I'm scratching my head going, who the fuck in their right mind thought that this was a good idea? It's like, and yeah, it was just that classic old, oh well, you guys are going to be playing in a bigger venue, bigger crowd, not realizing that it was a bunch of metalheads that love anything Pantera related. They're not going to take on a grunge band, that's for sure. So
man,
yeah,
just borderline just suicide, just sending them out there, just like, oh man, like just putting them to death. It was just so in that book, do they go into detail about it? Oh
yeah, the roadies treated them like shit. They were basically they knew they were in the wrong place at the wrong time the whole time that they were there. So it was pretty full on, dude. So yeah, I would love to hear it straight from the horse's mouth one day. I'd love to hear more about it.
I'll have to write that one down as something to pursue for the podcast.
Yeah, but I think for us, I think the only remotely close band that we may have played with that was a little bit different was I think it was 28 Days.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, played his show with those guys. But man, like through our fifth member Chippy, you know, we just build the greatest camaraderies with bands, you know, like because we treat everyone equal, man. We don't sort of, you know, turn our noses up at anyone. We don't think we're better than anyone. And with those guys, you know, we love them. We grew up with those guys, and they just took us on like little brothers, man. So yeah, it was awesome.
And I think when you got that, then I think there's just something in the air where crowds tend to accept a little bit more. They can sort of see like the genuine sort of connection between, you know, that camaraderie between the band members and all that sort of
Absolutely.
stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I noticed that you guys put out a single about a month or so ago, I believe.
Yes.
Paranormal?
Yes.
So my question, and I've been really curious with the way bands are sort of looking at music these days, because obviously everything changes, and I reckon, in my opinion, Spotify themselves have sort of changed the behavior of how bands release music now, because everyone's just slamming out Friday release dates, and that's changed everything. And we're going to singles and not so many albums and EPs. What are your thoughts, or the collective thought in the band about what the future is for you guys and how you put music out? Have you guys got some thoughts about what is going to work for you guys in context with the way that everything's changing?
We haven't really put too much deep thought into it. I mean, for us, you know, we love making albums. You know, that's been our thing. And, you know, we definitely know that there's another album to be made. But at the moment, we've got a new single there. We've got another single that will surface a little bit later on. And I guess, you know, we're just in the firm belief of letting things organically happen, especially in these interesting times where a lot of content that gets put out, unless it's on the majors, it's just going to get lost in the ether of, you know, nothingness. You know, it's like you'll hear it for 1 week and then it's just nothing but a faded memory after that. You know, because for bands, especially now, the obvious is, you know, you can't tour to support it. And that was always the best way to put our product, is back it up with the tour. So we don't have that sort of capacity right now. Like we do, but we don't, because you just don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. It is quite uncertain, and it's a weird one, because, you know, like for us, we're in a similar boat as far as albums are concerned. I mean, we still do albums, but you have to be so careful about when to put them out. And I think just over the past 12 months, with a lot of bands just stopping or pausing for a moment and probably had releases slated for 2020 have gone, you know what, we're going to push it back to 2021. So suddenly anyone else sort of goes, well, you know, 2021 could be a write-off because there's just too much. And then that could spill into 2022 and so forth. So it's a weird time. And I think maybe the big thing is just not to rush and just take it as it comes.
It is. But the other thing that, I mean, from my train of thought as well is, with albums, you know, with a lot of people that listen to music today, you know, we're spoilt with options. We're spoilt with how we listen to music today. It's ridiculous. We don't have the romanticism anymore of what it's like to listen to an album from start to finish. You know, I'm of that mentality of, I love sitting there with a CD or an album, looking at all the cover art, reading the liner notes, and going on a journey with the music from the opening track to the finish, because I'm of the firm belief that a great album tells a great story, you know, and I love that about music. And that's kind of what we try to do with what we record, is we try to tell a story from start to finish. And, you know, I would hate to sort of lose that and just, you know, put out singles willy-nilly. I'd much prefer to actually engross the time of and commit to putting together a great album that you can look back on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and the funny thing, which could potentially happen, is that there'll be such a massive influx of bands that are just throwing out multiple singles all throughout the year and not doing albums anymore. The thing that used to be normal, which was exactly what you said, you grab the CD or the vinyl, you'd sit there and you listen from start to end, that will come back, but it'll be a novelty and it'll be something exciting again, when it used to be just the normal thing that we were all used to at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen like Flare Pants did in the 80s, man.
That's right.
I never wore flare pants, but hey, why not try something new once?
That's it. And so I grew up in Brisbane, and so for me, just thinking about sort of the things that you were saying before about sort of the whole experience of immersing yourself in music. I mean, for me, and I'm not sure if it was the same for you, because I think were you always based in Brisbane, or were you sort of more down the Gold Coast?
Gold Coast, Brisbane. Yep.
A bit of
in
both.
between the two.
Yeah. So like places like Skinny's, and
oh my God, I love Skinny's.
Rocking Horse and the Record Exchange and all those places. I mean, they were institutions for all of us sort of growing up and trying to discover music. No doubt for you, like Skinny's would have been like one of those sort of meccas for learning about who's who in music and sort of meeting people and discovering tunes.
Absolutely. Even when I was on the Gold Coast, Inferior Records, in my early years on the Gold Coast, I'm still friends with Adam Cox, that used to own it. And man, to me, that was my holy grail. I would go in there and every day I'd hear something new. And, he had the place set up so you could just sit on a couch and listen to music. And he would tell you, you need to listen to this album. Like he was so passionate about music, and, would take the time to tell you what you need to listen to. Not because a record company told him to, it's because he listened to it, went, I really believe in this band. I think you need to listen to it. Things like that I really loved. And I loved Skinnies and Rocking Horse for those reasons also. It took you to another world, man. It was escapism of the greatest form.
And they were just hangouts. There were places like you wouldn't even necessarily go, oh, well, I've got money, I'm going to go and buy an album. You'd just sometimes just go in there just to see what's going on and see who's there. Like you just bump into people.
Yeah.
And that's how I built a lot of friendships with people. I just go, oh, hey, you've got a, I don't know, Metallica t-shirt, or, my name's Andy or whatever. And it's just an incredible thing that just doesn't really exist anymore, apart from a couple of stores that are still sort of running, but they're not hangouts.
No, and that's the thing, man. Like, a lot of people today, they would just frown upon it and go, oh, that's old. That's old. That's like old people stuff. And it's like, oh, bro, you're missing out, man. You did not drink the Kool-Aid, man. You've missed this one big time. I mean, going to places like, I went to Tower Records in Japan once. Amazing. I went to Amoeba Music in LA. My God, that was, man, if heaven existed, it would be called Amoeba Records. It was like, seriously, like, man, you could just spend a whole day walking around, looking through all the different areas and departments of music, books, DVDs, whatever, and just, oh, man, just there's nothing like it, man. Like, it just defeats picking up a phone and chucking on Spotify and hoping for the best. It's like, it's so much more than that. And like you say, making those personal connections with people, that was the sprinkles on the cake as well.
Yeah, definitely. I remember walking into Amoeba and just being so overwhelmed. I just went, I have no idea where to start. Like, this is just the most ridiculous place.
Yeah, and they have a great YouTube channel that has content called What's in My Bag, and I haven't even gotten through half the channel yet, but there's just so many cool musicians and artists that go around and pick 5 items, and they talk about, in depth the items that they collected and for what reason. So things like that just tells me a story of a place that doesn't just sell records. They're passionate about what they do. They really believe in the brand, and that's beautiful.
Oh, and I think it sort of it leans into a bit of that nerd culture as well, where there's a little bit of a collectible element to it, but you become very sort of I'm trying to think of the word, but I mean, it's very nerd-like as far as your knowledge and the depth of knowledge, and
Yes.
working out the links between the bands and the musicians and the
Absolutely.
storylines and all these sort of things. And you become obsessed with it, and you become so passionate about, just music in general, but especially when you identify with a particular genre or subgenre of music as well. But
Yeah.
it's another world. And I think for me, like one thing I've always toyed in the back of my head is that there needs to be probably, the last 12 months has thrown all plans or any ideas out of whack, but to bring back some of these smaller music stores and to chuck the couch in there and to chuck some, some things to create a social meeting point and a bit of a hub, and then have the guru behind the table, behind the desk, who knows everything about music, or appears to, and says, hey, you've got a Wednesday 13 t-shirt, so I'm going to give you I'm going to pass over some Darkcell, check out these guys, and that sort of connection where they're building the next generation of music fans.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, that I get that just going to Rocking Horse Records, which is still around in the city. Even in Sydney, Utopia Records.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, just to go in there and see Raymond from the
Raymond.
Hard-Ons.
Yeah.
Like, from one of the most legendary punk bands in Australia, working behind the counter, and just shit like that. It's just, man, so cool. It's but yeah, just walking around, hearing the music in the background, seeing the people. There's so much more than just the music on the shelf. It's a lot more than that. It's atmosphere. It's an energy, and very few people understand that.
So speaking of nerd culture, you mentioned Supernova and like a love of comics and the like. I was blown away that you've done this comic book. Like, this is incredibly cool. And funnily enough, I'm glad you flicked over a link so I could check it out. So thanks for doing that. But it's
my pleasure.
One of the questions I was going to ask you, but I worked it out myself. I'm like, do you know Aaron? Do you know Aaron Samet? And then I'm going through the credits. I'm like, yes, he's partially involved with the project. So I got the vibe straight away, and I thought there's a bunch of people that are totally into this sort of stuff. But man, where did the idea come to? Like, being a musician, being immersed in music, you obviously got a fascination with some of these other subcultures, but to make the decision to go into a comic book and creating it, I mean, where did it all come from?
I grew up reading comics as a kid. I learned how to read and write and draw from comic books, and I thank my mom and my nan to this day for that. They nurtured my reading habits, and comic books was just a vital part of my life growing up, and still is, because I still haven't grown up, but or has any of us. But for me, comics is just it's like music. It's escapism. It's expressionism in the greatest form, and you can just doesn't matter what sort of day you're having. You can open a comic book or listen, turn on an album and just escape, and it's beautiful. For whatever time period that is. So for me, I always wanted to do a comic book. I had a taste of it a few years ago when I teamed up with a very talented artist, Steve Khaled, and we did a comic book called Toxic Mutant Hero based on one of the Darkcell songs. And we just did this like comical superhero parody that was, good fun. And we sold, a bunch of comics. It was great. But I wanted to do something more ongoing. I always wanted to, I love it. And long story short, when we toured the States, I kept a journal, actually 4 journals of every day that we were on tour. And I don't know why, I just did it. And I looked back on it and I wanted to publish it as a book. And I still may one day. But I don't know, I just had this idea. And I thought, well, what if I took those tour diaries and put a bit of a spin on it and put some werewolves and vampires and zombies and see where it goes. And I came up with this idea to bring Freakenstein to life, because I always was fascinated with the whole idea of Freakenstein and that song and what it meant to me. And I love horror and I love comic books, so I thought, well, fuck it, let's bring it all together. And see what happens. And I've had nothing but the best time creating Freakenstein. It's been an absolute pleasure.
So when you were writing these, like documenting your travels in these journals, did you have in the back of your mind that you were doing this for a purpose, or was it more just a case of I just want to remember the memories and that's about it for the time being?
It was funny because when I started doing the journals, prior to the tour, I'd been watching a lot of Anthony Bourdain documentaries, and I absolutely fell in love with his charm and his wit, and the way he spoke about food and life and everything. I was incredibly fascinated by that, and I was like, I don't know, just that kind of descriptive nature resonated within me, and I always believed in wanting to narrate life in a similar way. And while we're on tour, I was just fascinated by everything that I saw, and I just wrote it all down, in a narrative kind of way that maybe one day I could go back and read, or maybe I can put it into a book and people can read it. And it was a lot of fun, and but to be able to take that whole universe and create a supernatural universe out of it, it's just been like, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that myself, and it's been a lot of fun.
Was it a daunting thing? Obviously you had the idea, it gets exciting, you want to dive into it, but was it a daunting sort of thing for you to sort of convert this and also dive into this comic book space? Because one thing because I don't know a lot about comic books for whatever reason.
Sure.
I think my dad had some Archie comics and things like that, and I think that was about the extent that I got exposed to comics. But one thing I noticed is that it is a completely different way of storytelling, and I think
it is.
It could be quite complicated, because I think when you look on the surface, it looks like it's a very simplistic sort of approach, but you've got to really tell a story in a very different way. Did you find that daunting to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the instigator was during lockdown initially, I just started writing. So I started writing short novels. I released, in the space of a year and a bit, or less than 2 years, I've released four short novels already. And the first one was Freakenstein. It was part one of the saga. So I basically took the first few days of our tour and transcribed that into a novel. And then I don't know, I got some initial love from it, and I was quite intrigued by the reactions from people. But there was a few comments about, oh man, the way you've told this story, it'd make a really good comic book. And I thought about it, and I was like, you know what, you're actually right. And I love horror. I absolutely love horror. I love special effects, and I'm just such a sucker for all that cheesiness. So for me, I just wanted to bring everything I love from my childhood and bring that to a comic book. So to me, Freakenstein is kind of my love letter to my childhood.
I love that. That's so cool. I'm amazed at how productive you were last year as well. I mean, just to get that amount of stuff out. I mean, for some people it take years to just muster up the courage, let alone the motivation, and to be productive to get even, one of those short stories out, let alone, several, and sort of be, riding on this momentum, because it looks like that there's still plenty more to come as well.
Oh, there's a lot more to come. I've barely scratched the surface. I've got another 3 or 4 book ideas in progress, in production at the moment. I've been writing I guess you would call it a fan fiction, called The Baseball Fury, based on the Baseball Furies from the Warriors movie. Oh. I've just created like a legacy tale that I started writing a few years ago. And the way it's come out, people are like, dude, you should make this into a TV show. So I'm just like, okay. So I guess I'm just throwing a series of challenges at myself, creative challenges, and just going, well, why not do it? What's stopping me? And that's kind of how I look at life now. I just go, well, the only person that is stopping you is you. So if you want to create a book, go create a book. If you want to write an album, write an album. If you want to write a screenplay, go forth and write a screenplay. What's the worst that can happen?
Well, that's it.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah, definitely. And is this a recent thing for you where, you know, for so many years being a part of, like, you know, the music scene, you know, whether it be, you know, putting on shows yourself and contributing to the music scene, or actually being in a band and being a creative and a performer, is it sort of a bit of a new thing in the grand scheme of things where there's this extra element to yourself that is coming out, not just because, you know, you've always had these interests there, but to be able to sort of professionalize it and put it out there, and you've got things, you've produced these stories, and you've got more coming. Is this a bit of a novelty for you still, where it's sort of like, wow, this is another, I'm trying not to use the word identity too much anymore, because I've been kicking that to the death for the past several months, but is it sort of a new sort of side to you that you're starting to see?
I think it's kind of a part of me that's always been there, that's just, you know, I guess time has always prevented me from doing all these other things. So I've sort of taken the bull by the horns during this free time that many of us have had, and just gone, well, okay, I could sit here and moan and groan about this, that, and the other, or I can go be productive and do some cool stuff. And we kind of all kind of did that in our band. We just kind of started focusing on things that we like doing. And for me, I love writing, I love creating. So yeah, for me, it's been, I don't know, it's very romantic. I absolutely love it. It's such a joy to create a comic. I've done these novels, but now I'm creating a comic book that is, like I said, a love letter to my childhood and to rock and roll, and horror, everything that I love. But not only that, I am celebrating the people I care about in my comic as well. Like in the first issue, I've been able to involve my band in it, that, you know, funny enough, are part of the story. Some of my closest friends in other bands, I've brought them into it, you know, and it's just sort of my way of expressing my love for my friends and family that I care about. And I even included fans of the band, you know, they helped me finance the project with wanting to be in the comics. So, you know, because the whole thing, sorry to sort of waffle on, Andy, but, you know, with the projects, everything that I've done, the other thing I wanted to do was I needed money to do it. So I did initially sort of think about Kickstarter and Patreon, all those things that people do. But then I thought, well, I'm a bit of a, you know, philanthropic person as well. So how about I do this from an ethical standpoint? And I just thought, I started recycling. So every week I have been recycling on foot and saving the money to pay for all the artwork and printing of the books and everything through my own sweat and energy.
Wow.
So,
okay. So what, literally like going and grabbing the cans, grabbing the bottles, grabbing all the stuff that's lying around, and going to the exchange and getting a couple of dollars here and there and building that kitty up.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did.
I love it. Yeah. It's so good.
And it just felt so good, man. It felt so right. You know, like, I mean, there's definitely shortcut ways that I could raise the money, but I just went, no, I'm going to do this the right way and do it in a way that gives back to the planet as well. You know, like, I'm not a hippie, peace-loving person or anything like that, but to me, you know, I just knew I could do something good that will do something good for me in return. So, you know, for me, I was able to finance my dreams from doing something good for the environment. Pretty simple.
Oh, mate, I'm so excited at that idea. That is so cool, because it just goes to show that there's so many different ways to make it happen. You know, you can do
Absolutely.
You can do the Patreon, you can do the crowdfunding, you can do all that stuff. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Power to you. But there are other options as well, and depending on what, you know, where your values are and what means the most to you, and to be able to sort of reflect back and then say, well, out of these efforts that I was doing in a very outward way to contribute to other things that are important, it's led me to fulfill the dreams that I have, where I want to put together this book, and I want to put out this content. I want to do these things, and I've done it in the most meaningful way to me. I mean, an extra layer of satisfaction, no doubt. Yeah,
and that's exactly it, man. And, you know, it doesn't stop there. You know, like, I'm just continuously doing it. And, the artist that I pay an artist to design my work for Freakenstein. He lives in a country where $5 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, and he's told me that money helps his family. So for me, that adds even more value to what I do, because it's not only fulfilling my dreams, it's not only doing something good for the environment, but I'm also helping a family as well, and that there's just so much sentimental value for me doing what I'm doing right now that's so important to me personally, rather than, I'm making a bunch of money, doing this, that, and whatever. It's more than that. It's way more than that.
It's a bit of a community project, isn't it?
It is, man. And, I can't turn my brain off, so, I'm writing music, I'm writing these books, and, I've set a challenge to myself this year. I want to do a screenplay and film a trailer for hopefully Freakenstein this year. So,
Love it.
Yeah, it's just taking life and just grabbing the bull by the horns and doing it, man. And I love the fact that I'm hearing from people that are inspired from what I'm doing, and they're telling me they're doing this, that, and the other, and it makes me so happy that others are inspired to do great things.
Yeah, and it sort of circles back, doesn't it? I mean, it just fuels you to keep going, because you can see the impact that you're having on others.
Absolutely. To digress just a little bit, I was only talking to a gentleman today, a good friend that first and foremost was a fan, but now is a good friend, and he's told me his desire to publish his own book. And I said, well, what's stopping you? And, he's inspired from my efforts to go forth and put out a book of his own poetry. So that just makes me so happy. And I've heard many stories like that. People that were shy about singing, that are now recording their own singles. It's just great. It's really great to see people inspired to do great things, and that we can all encourage each other.
And I think also one thing that I think it's just been a little bit of a light bulb moment for me in the past few years is that, all this music stuff and this creative stuff that we all immerse ourselves in, we kind of, or at least from my point of view and my experience, I was doing it, I guess, in a very short-term way. I was always thinking about sort of hitting that next goal and then that's it, rather than sort of thinking about, this is actually a part of my life. This is a part of me, and this will be a forever thing. And I think with, all these people that hold back, about not wanting to publish a book, or not wanting to sing, or not wanting to do something that's creative, sometimes, obviously there's all the things we spoke about, like tall poppy syndrome and criticism from other people. But I think sometimes people just think like they can't see themselves doing something for a long period of time, or just gradually easing into something to make it a part of their life. And so they think that that learning curve, or that moment to take that first step forward is such a daunting thing, where, the world changes forever. And instead it's like, no, Absolutely. You can make this a part of your life and ease into it and make it happen.
Absolutely. I mean, look, the other thing too is that we also live in such an ageist society. So many people, they run life based on a pair of numbers. And it's like, I've talked to people, that are well in their 60s, whatever, coming to me with goals and aspirations. And I'm like, what's stopping you? And I go, no, I don't know. It doesn't, to me, I don't care how old you are, just go forth and do it. You want to make a book, go forth and do it. You want to make an album, go forth and do it. Who cares about all those little details? They're just little details.
Yeah, that's right. Definitely. Mate, yeah. I'm inspired. It's great. It's really cool. I mean, I love to talk to people that are just gung-ho and just diving into it. And as you said before, it's like, what's the worst that can happen? And I think we don't often go back and ask ourselves that question often. And so we sort of just get immersed and distracted and overwhelmed in all the what ifs that haven't actually really thought through. Instead of just going, okay, literally, what is the worst thing that can happen? And if you've got a game plan for the worst case scenario, which in most cases isn't that bad after all, then there's your safety net. So jump in, see what happens.
That's right. 100%, man. 100%. I mean, because I've met so many people in life that come up to me and they'll say the same thing. I used to have long hair like you. I used to be in a band. I used to do this. I used to do that. And then I hear that I woulda, I shoulda, I coulda, I didn't. You know, you hear that so often. And it's like, well, again, who's stopping you? You are. So you can't blame anyone but yourself.
Has your approach with Darkcell changed as a result of what's been going on for the past 12 or so months with so this other thing? Because obviously you're pulling stories from Darkcell music, and that's helping you inspire a lot of the stories that you're putting together now. But are you sort of noticing, like with you guys in the band and even yourself, that the way that you approach Darkcell is starting to tweak because of what you're starting to see in this other part of your world?
In many ways, yeah. With Darkcell, we, again, everything happened organically, but we always had a very, I guess, headstrong juggernaut style approach to things. We just didn't back down. We didn't let, things stop us. Like we looked up to bands like Motley Crue that just had that gang mentality, so we took on a bit of that mentality ourselves, and a lot of that rubbed off on us individually with what we do as individuals outside of the band. So I would probably agree a lot with what you've said there, for sure.
I think you might have mentioned to me earlier that that sort of Darkcell sort of like part of the soundtrack, or you're creating music as part of the soundtrack to Freakenstein itself. Is there sort of an intentional thing that you guys are starting to do, or yourself, to try and create that audio element to the story as well? Because obviously there's stuff that's inspired the story from stuff you've written in the past, but are you sort of thinking about creating music to complement the stories now? Yeah,
I've actually become just for a bit of fun and creativity, I started composing music using loop programs myself. So I've actually composed pretty much an EP of material, instrumental stuff. And one of the tracks is called Enter the Freakenstein, which is on my Freak Productions website. And, I've just, because I grew up loving and listening to John Carpenter. I'm an absolute fan of soundtrack music. There's just so many great soundtracks out there in the universe, but John Carpenter, all his work is just phenomenal to me. I just love the simplicity of what he does and how he can just complement a story. So that resonated with me deeply when I created Freakenstein, and I had some people ask me that very question. So I started tinkering with it, because I'm always a composer in Darkcell. I don't really play instruments, but I can compose the way a sound comes together. And so for me, I was able to, find some loop programs that enabled me to bring my ideas to life. And I've created a small library of work. It's not perfect or anything, but it's the kind of work that I've shared with a few people, and people have just quite pleasantly surprised with the results. So there's definitely a soundtrack that will come with the body of work that I put out. I'm just having a good time, man. That's kind of my philosophy, is just have fun first and foremost, and things will happen a lot more easier if you're having fun.
Exciting stuff, man. I don't know where you find the time to do it all, but well done, mate. I mean,
thank you.
It's great, because I think we all sort of think that we're busy, and we're looking around and going, oh man, I've got no time to do that thing that I love or passionate about. But there's a lot of idle time that we're not consciously aware of, and it sounds like you're just trying to maximize every moment to focus on these things.
Yeah, it's balance, man. It really is. I mean, for me, like we've all, there's no secret. We've all dealt with a lot of internal demons in the last 12 months or so. Whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, or just dealing with current world events, we're all dealing with something like that. So for me, I've just tried to take a negative and turn it into a positive through what I do. And I've just kept my mind busy, by using my creativity and producing stuff that means something to me. And I'm just grateful that, there's a couple of people out there that enjoy what I do.
Oh man, there's heaps by the looks of it. Awesome stuff, mate. Where should people start? Where's the best place to start? Whether it be Freakenstein or Darkcell, where should people kick off?
Look, honestly, go for the Darkcell for sure. Like we have a wonderful catalog of albums there to check out, and we have our new single Paranormal, which is very relevant to what's happening today. But my website is Freak Productions. It's a freak with 2 E's instead of an EA. So www.freakproductions.com. All my books, music. I've even got a short animation video about anxiety and depression on there as well. And there's just all the stuff that is there. All the fun is found there for you. And
Awesome. Sounds good. I'll chuck some links in the show notes as well so people can click through and
thank you
and have a look, man. But great to chat to you, man. Like I'm just I'm stoked with what you've been doing, and obviously seeing some stuff from afar and obviously being aware of you over the years. But just to have those opportunities to be a little bit more candid and understand a little bit more about what people are up to. It's just it's inspiring stuff, mate.
That's the beautiful thing about life, bro. It's if we can inspire each other to do great things, then more power to us.
Hey, now if you want to check out more of Jesse's world, go to freakproductions.com, FREEK productions.com. And that's a great page. It's got a lot of different things from Jesse's world. So go and immerse yourself in there and reach out to Jesse and let him know what you thought of this chat and what he's up to. He's man, like a really inspiring guy. Really, really enjoyed that. Go to darkcell.com, and that's instead of an E, it's a 3. Get it around the right way. But of course, if you get lost or I can't explain the bloody websites properly, go to andysocial.net or andydowling.net, or wherever you're listening to this through right now, whatever podcast player you're listening to, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, Stitcher, YouTube, whatever, there'll be a bunch of clickable links in the description so you can click right through, make it nice and easy for yourself. But an amazing chat with an incredible guy, and it just blows my mind that people that I've bumped into in my travels many, many years ago have somehow circled back and are now on the Antisocial podcast. So just another legend to add to the long list of incredible people that have been on this podcast over the past 283 freaking episodes over 5.5 years. Just insane stuff. So definitely reach out to Jesse and let him know what you thought of this chat, along with everybody else who's been on this podcast over the years. Now, before we wrap it up, of course, patreon.com/Andy Dowling. Great way to support this podcast. Honestly, my goal this year is to get as many $1 supporters as possible. So, folks, please, go into the description or the show notes. There'll be a Patreon link in there, or go to patreon.com/Andy Dowling. Sign up for $1 a month. It's just a little feel-good payment. It's set and forget. You won't even notice it. And if I get enough of you guys, oh, amazing. It'll be absolutely incredible. And I've already got this amazing community that are already backing me and what I do. And I'm just so incredibly fortunate to have a bunch of legends that are supporting. Now, if you want access to additional things, such as the Patreon podcast episode that comes out every Tuesday morning, or a bunch of free stuff, merchandise, giveaways, I'm doing exclusive t-shirts that are available for free, depending on the tier. It's just a bunch of other dumb things that come up when wacky ideas that I have is all through Patreon. So there are additional tiers if you want access to some of that extra stuff. So go to patreon.com/Andy Dowling, and a little shout out to my top tier supporters. These guys are in my top 2 tiers over at Antisocial, well, kind of, over at Patreon. So a massive thank you in particular to Andrew from Perth, Mick G from Sydney, Ash from Deniliquin, Dan from Dapto. Come on, Andy, you can do it. Rod from Rayleigh in North Carolina, Patrick from Canberra, Liam from Brisbane, Chris from Sydney, Brendo from Leeton, Tim from Canberra, James from Brisbane, Christian from Canberra, Steve from the Gold Coast, and Andrew from Sydney. Thank you very much, guys. These folks are the heavy hitters. They're the significant contributors, and they're part of the wider wider Patreon community of legends who are just supporting, throwing a couple of bucks my way each month and just being a part of this amazing podcast. Honestly, these guys are the reason why Antisocial exists in 2021. It's the reason why I do 2 episodes a week. It is, obviously the money is a massive help. It helps with production, editing, hosting, getting around town, replenishing gear, all that sort of stuff. But more importantly, it's just super motivating. It just validates what I'm doing, and and a little bit of accountability as well, just to have these amazing people investing in what I do. So it's just super cool. Love it. Just absolutely stoked. So go over to patreon.com/AndyDowling. Well, I think that's more than enough bullshitting from me. I'm waffling on way too much in this outro, but you would have seen by now our Lord's latest release, Undercovers Volume 1, is out right now. So go over to Bandcamp, lordofficial.bandcamp.com, to grab all 23 covers, plus over 2 hours of podcasting where Tim and I dissect all 23 songs and talk about the stories behind the songs, why we record them at the time, where they got released, and just our own memories of these amazing bands that we covered over the years. So go and check all that out over at Bandcamp. If you don't want all 23 tracks, then there's 8 exclusive tracks from the 23 that are available in the streaming services. So you can go and check all that stuff out as well in the usual haunts. But get behind it, support it. We'd love to get your thoughts on some of those covers that we've been recording over the years. So there you go. I think that's enough for one episode. Another episode coming very soon. I'm not even going to give any hints. I'm going to pull a name out of the hat and let's just see what happens. So until then, folks, take care and ta-ta.